Hi, everybody. My name is Carl Darden, and I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for joining us today here on Navy Sports Central. I'm your host, and this is the official podcast of the Navy Sports Nation, where we take a deeper dive into Navy sports. It is great to be back after taking some time off to recharge the batteries, and don't look now, but we are less than 5 weeks away from the start of the Navy football season. In this episode, we'll have a very special guest joining us who will give us some great insight into one player's journey to Annapolis. And we'll also have our question of the day and find out the names of our two athletes that we'll be tracking during our mid-watch segment. So don't go anywhere. We'll kick things off after this short break. All right, welcome to the 2022-23 Navy sports season, everyone. Right now, all the athletes that are playing fall sports are in full practice mode and getting ready to start their seasons. As many of you know, the football team kicks off their year on September 3rd versus Delaware, but it's actually the women's soccer team that will be the first to see action when they take on the Citadel at home on August the 18th. That's right about the time the rest of the brigade returns to start the academic year. The other teams get their seasons going by about mid-September. And, of course, men's and women's rugby will be competing as a varsity sport for the first time. The women are the defending Collegiate Rugby Athletic Association national champions, so they will be looking for a possible repeat there. Now, I do have one football-related update for you before we bring on our guest, and I talked about it briefly when the story came out at the beginning of last week. Malcolm Perry has decided to retire from the NFL and begin his career as a Marine Corps officer. You may recall that the Miami Dolphins selected Perry in the 7th round of the 2020 draft as a running back. At the time, I was really fired up because Miami is my favorite team, and they'd also picked Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa in the first round. But I also knew the Dolphins looked to be pretty set at that position, so my first hope was for Perry just to make the roster. This is where his versatility came in handy. His speed and elusiveness made him an attractive option on special teams as a kickoff and punt returner, and the Dolphins were also a little bit thin at the receiver position. So Perry got a lot of work during training camp at slot receiver. Now, he did make the roster, and then when a bunch of injuries hit Miami's receiver core, Perry did manage to get into 9 games while starting 2 of them. He caught a total of 9 passes for 92 yards, and the best one I saw was against Buffalo, where he made a really nice over-the-shoulder catch for a 25-yard touchdown in the last game of the 2020 season. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was his last catch because it was late in the fourth quarter, and the game was pretty much already decided. Anyway, some roster changes the next year resulted in Perry being released, and he was picked up by the Patriots before the next season started, but he was really slowed down by a foot injury. Last year was kind of a weird season because at some point, Perry ended up on the New Orleans Saints practice squad, but then at the end of the year, he was back with New England, and the team had actually signed him to a futures contract in January, and he figured to compete for a roster spot during training camp. But I guess after taking several things into consideration, Perry decided to call it a career. Actually, I'm glad he had a chance to see what he could do. And as far as I'm concerned, Perry proved that he really belonged. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right fit at the right time, because as I look at him and his skills, knowing what I know, there's no doubt in my mind he could make one of those 32 NFL rosters given the right opportunity. Now, before I leave this topic, there is one thing that I want to say when it comes to Malcolm Perry's 4 years at Navy. No quarterback that I can remember ever took such a huge leap forward in his development between his junior and senior seasons. And that holds true for his ability to make the correct pre-snap reads as well as getting the offense in the right play when the defense shifted to give him a different look. But what I think impressed me the most was that Perry worked his tail off to become a very efficient passer. During his junior year, defenses began stacking the box because he was such a huge threat as a runner. They weren't the least bit scared of him throwing the ball, though, and the numbers support that. During the 2018 season, Perry completed only 9 passes on 25 attempts for 222 yards. That includes 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. And just to be clear, those stats cover roughly 6 games because Perry was moved back to slot back after the Air Force game. Now, he did rush for over 1,000 yards that year, but the team still struggled at quarterback all season long. After losing to Army for the 3rd straight year, Perry went to Coach Jasper right after the game to let him know that he was 100% committed to being Navy's starting quarterback in 2019. And that's when everything started to change. Coach Niumatalolo hired Billy Ray Stutzman, who was an assistant with Hawaii at the time. The Rainbow Warriors used a version of the run-and-shoot offense, and Stutzman worked with the quarterbacks. So he and Coach Jasper got Perry focused on his passing mechanics. They came up with a package to work out of either the shotgun or the pistol formation that got him out in space and gave him more time to throw. The result was a complete turnaround in the numbers. Perry completed 48 of 86 passes for 1,084 yards and 7 touchdowns. He averaged 12.5 yards per attempt, but the thing I noticed more than anything else was he had developed some terrific touch when it came to throwing the ball. He was able to drop the ball into some really tight windows right into his receiver's hands. I remember one play against Memphis where he hit Chance Warren in the back corner of the end zone over 2 defenders. And I think one of the Hasselbeck brothers was doing the color commentary on the game, and he described that pass as landing as softly as a butterfly with sore feet. So that gives you a pretty good indication of how much finesse Perry had developed in throwing the ball. And that was just one example. Perry did the same thing against Air Force and also in the Liberty Bowl against Kansas State. The bottom line was now teams had to respect his ability to throw. And that made Perry even more dangerous with the ball in his hands. He finished the year with 2,017 rushing yards, which is a Division I record for quarterbacks. He also ran for 304 yards against Army. And as far as his explosiveness as a runner, no one even comes close. Perry led all college football with 26 carries that went for 20 yards or more in 2019. Most players never have a 90-yard gain in their careers. And in 2017, Perry had 2 that went for more than 90 yards in the same season. The first time was against Air Force, where he took one for 91 yards to the house. And then he followed that up later in the game against SMU with a 92-yard run. So, yeah, he was an incredible talent. Defenses were legitimately scared of him. And I know that the entire Army defense from the 2019 game is still having nightmares. The next stop for Perry is Quantico, Virginia, where I know he'll go on to become an outstanding Marine. All right, that takes care of our sports update. Our deep dive segment is next, and trust me, you do not want to miss this. I'll tell you why when we come back. Okay, thanks for staying with us on Navy Sports Central. It is time for our deep dive segment, and I am very excited to welcome our first guest as we kick off the new sports season. And by way of introduction, I can guarantee you that there is absolutely no one else on the planet who knows Navy quarterback Tai Lavatai better than this individual. Not the coaching staff, not his roommate, not anyone. And of course, I'm talking about his mom, Gina Lavatai. She is also affectionately known as Lava Mama among the Navy football fans. That's pretty cool. And she joins us now to give us a little bit more insight into what Tai was like when he was growing up from her perspective. All right. Hey, Gina, you have no idea how thrilled I am to have you on with us on Navy Sports Central. So thank you so much for taking the time to visit.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled that you asked me.
Okay. So I know that everyone wants to get to know a little bit about Tai, but before we start in on that, I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit of information about yourself. If I recall, you live in the Jacksonville, Florida area, right?
Yep. We moved here in 2007. I had the opportunity to move here with what I do. I work in banking. Mm-hmm. And so got the opportunity to come up here and start a bank. And so they moved me up here and the boys, and we've been here ever since. So 2007, we moved to Jacksonville.
And where did you move from?
Actually, we moved from Homestead, Florida. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it.
Oh, you can't. So here's a good story for you. My dad was an Air Force guy.
Oh, okay.
And we were stationed, I guess there's no base down there anymore, but we were stationed at Homestead Air Force Base from the time I was, I think from 73 to 76. So yeah, when I was 10 through 13.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. We were at Shaw Air Force Base then. It was actually 1969 to 73. So we moved there when I was about 7. And we moved away when I was, I hit like the 5th grade, I think. So yeah, pretty familiar with that area. But again, it's been a long time since I've been there.
Yeah, I think there's a reserve base there now after Hurricane Andrew. I think it turned to a reserve base. But we moved into that area in 72 in Naranja Lakes. Uh-huh. And then Hurricane Andrew hit, and then we moved into a different area. And we were there. That's where both of my boys were born.
Okay. All right.
In Miami. Mm-hmm. All
right, great. So, tell me a little bit about what you like to do when you're not cheering on Tai on Saturdays.
I was trying to figure that out because I spent my whole life being a single mom and running both my boys around to football and baseball and basketball and and it's like after that quit, I was like, what do I like to do? And so, I'm really kind of discovering that right now. I've started drawing and painting and getting into refurbishing furniture. So that's my next thing I'm going to try.
Okay. All right. My dad actually messes around a little bit with that. More building furniture, I think, than refurbishing it. He's built like a lot of little things here and there.
I would love to learn how to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one hobby that I took up a little bit late in life was photography. So that's kind of in line with your drawing, passion there. So anyway, so one of the things I wanted to talk to you also about a little bit, did you play any sports at all when you were growing up?
No.
No?
I think Ty gets all his athletic ability probably from his dad, and my mom and dad were both athletic. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, definitely he gets it from his dad side of the family.
Okay. Now, what else did he play besides football?
Oh gosh, he played baseball from about the time he was 9 till freshman year. And then he
Mm-hmm.
played again his senior year. He played rec league basketball. He played flag football from the time he was 6 till high
Uh-huh.
school, and then he played tackle football from the time he was six till now.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Baseball was my sport growing up. In fact, when we were living down there in Homestead is when I started playing because I was about 8 years old at the time. And it's it's one of those things, the first 2 years, you're still trying to figure out your own coordination, your own body. And I don't even think I touched the ball when I swung the bat until I was like 9. but, but I had a really good coach that year. And he was a dad of my best friend. And that's when I finally learned how to hit a baseball. And after that, everything kind of went fine. But yeah, I remember those first couple of years getting going. I'm thinking, God, am I really want to stick in with this? But that's where I started playing, was down there at Homestead.
That's neat. Yeah, Ty, he hadn't really shown any interest in wanting to play. The kids around the neighborhood always were on, rec teams, and our neighbor across the street, said, "Hey, I'll take him out and see what he can do, and if he can handle himself, then come down to the rec tryouts."
Right, right.
We're like, okay, so he went down, and he was 9, and next thing you know, he's being drafted for that guy's team, and he turned into be the starting pitcher. And I was like, wow, that's not normal, Ty. You don't you typically don't just start rec ball and then be the starting pitcher. So
That's right.
yeah.
So as you mentioned, he started playing tackle football pretty early. When did you get a sense for him having some real legit skills when it came to playing football? In other words, was it a deal where you could see him progress year to year, or was it more of one year, bang, just something kind of came together and you said to yourself, man, if he wants to put in the time on this, he could go places?
I think one of the funny things, one of the conditions of his conditions of me moving them from Homestead to Jacksonville was that he got to play tackle football. As long as he said he got to do that, then he would be willing to move. So that was his condition. But when he was little, I mean, 2, 3 years old, he would play like the little tykes basketball and hit a ball being pitched to him, and so he had always had really great hand-eye coordination, very competitive, even that little. So I knew that he was just always kind of wanting to get after it. And then when we moved up here and he got on the flag field, and I could see him with the other kids. And then when he started playing tackle football, his first experience at tackle football, I remember them doing kind of like a huddle drill where they're like in a circle, and the coach walked by and would tap one kid on the head and tap another kid, and they would have to run towards each other and tackle each other. And most of the kids were kind of ducking down and moving out of the way, and Ty just shouldered down and would knock them right over. At 6 years old, and I was like, yeah, I think he's going to be all right. I think he's going to like this sport, and from that point on, I mean, he just always loved it. He just always wanted to do it. And he said when he went to college, he wanted to major in football. I mean, it was just in him. So
right.
Yeah.
So did he, when he was playing at that young age, did he always start out at quarterback, or did he play quarterback in other positions, or?
Yeah, no, he played quarterback and flag, along with running back and safety. And then for tackle, he didn't start playing a quarterback till 8th grade, middle school.
Okay.
So he played linebacker. He was on the D line for a little bit. He played running back a lot of the time. And so then, he always had to play up because he was bigger.
Right. Yeah. He's got some good size.
Yeah.
For sure.
So he was always playing up, and he was always on the bubble playing up. So he was always bigger and stronger. And but yeah, he wanted to play quarterback, and people didn't believe that he could, and he got the starting job in middle school. So yeah.
All right, very cool. All right, so Gina, most athletes, especially when they're young, they're going to hit some sort of setback, and as a parent, you have to recognize that and figure out what you can do to support them and so forth. So I was wondering if you could share a moment with Ty where he hit kind of a rough patch, and he's still trying to kind of figure things out, and how did he come back from that, and what was the overall result?
Sure. There's a time period that I can think of specifically with him playing football. He started middle school as the quarterback, and he started our system here is the middle schools feed to the high schools, and the coaching tries to work pretty close with the middle school coaches to understand what's going on. So they knew who he was, and they were really excited about him coming to high school. And so when he came into high school, he went straight to varsity, and within 2 games he had the starting position as the varsity quarterback. So he was really excited. Broke his collarbone out most of the year. Came back at the end of the season, and he did start, finish the end of the season. But then 10th grade came, and just a whole bunch of different things, coaching circumstances. He was moved to 3rd string quarterback, and then he had to deal with what all comes with that, after being in the starting position, and then moving into 11th grade, similar kind of things, and got hurt again, and I think the frustration and just not understanding kind of what he needed to do and the maturity level. Tai was always a bigger kid, so physically and talented sports wise, and so I think people forget that maybe mentally, he's still a 9th grader or still a 10th grader, and luckily he got some wonderful coaches that came in junior year, and they really, one of them especially, Coach Evans, he and Tai just really connected and helped him understand, I think, and see that he has to look within himself and see what he needs to do and how he needs to take control of the situation and grow, and I think it made him realize, he does have what he wants inside, but he has to be the one to do that. And his coaches, his head coach, Coach McIntyre, between the two of them, they really turned him around, and I think that was what led him to be at the Naval Academy, because he had both of them as such a great support. He realized that within himself he had what it took, and he just needed to be the one to realize that, and I think that whole period of time really set him up for success, dealing with difficult situations, difficult personalities, because the coaching staff he had before was a little bit different. So we won't go there, but yeah. So I think it really made him mature and understand, he has to be the one in control. Right.
Well, I'll share with you the first exposure I had to Tai. Actually, it was a couple of years ago, and typically what I'll do is whenever the academy announces their new class, right, of football players coming in, I'll kind of start scanning the list, and then I'll start picking out people to see if I can find anything with them on YouTube or Max Preps or something like that. And at the time, I didn't see anything, any footage of Tai actually playing, but I did find this one clip of him being asked a couple of questions by a guy. I guess, I don't know if it was a football camp or whatever, but Tai had just gotten his notification that he had gotten to the academy. So that was the crux of the discussion. And as I'm listening to him, I said, yeah, this kid's pretty squared away. I think that, if he holds himself together and he kind of stays clear of injuries and stuff like that, at least from a mental standpoint, I felt like he was in a pretty good place. So that was my first exposure to him. And then a little bit later on, I started kind of seeing some video as I started doing a little bit more research. So yeah, I've been a fan for a couple of years now.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I really do think that whole period of time and dealing with what he dealt with, and it's kind of hard to be on the top of the horse and get knocked down and kind of stepped on a little bit. And but yeah, I think it really did make him mature a lot and understand. And he needed that going into the prep school, and because that's a hard life.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation with Gina Lavatai. Thanks for staying with us on Navy Sports Central. Carl Darden here with you, and I'm joined by Gina Lavatai, who is the proud mom of Navy quarterback Tai Lavatai. So, Gina, one interesting story I came across about 4 or 5 months ago, I think it might have even been before the Army-Navy game, but there's a a connection that you guys have to a quarterback named Jack Thompson, who played at Washington State actually when I was in high school. And I remember him because, I followed college football back then as well, obviously. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you were able to kind of connect with him and his family, and what can you share with us about that?
It's actually kind of a little bit of a funny story. So Jack had actually reached out to Ty on private message quite a long time ago, like maybe mid-year last year, just saying good luck and watching you or whatever, and hope to get to the Army Navy game. And so I didn't realize that had happened, but I always call him the throwing Samoan after
Mm-hmm.
Jack. They somehow it got relayed in some communication to, I think Ty did an interview, but that I didn't know who he was, and I was like, no, I used to do it in honor in honor of him. I knew you weren't the throwing Samoan, right? And so on Twitter there was a post by somebody, and it said the throwing Samoan, and it had a picture of Ty. Well, then there was a reply from Jack's son Tony, and it said he may be a throwing Samoan, but the throwing Samoan is Papa Throw, which is Jack. And so I had to laugh, and I responded back, and I said, absolutely. I've always nicknamed him that in honor of your dad. And
Uh,
so then Jack and I had a private message, and then got connected to Tony, and Tony and I chatted back and forth for quite a bit. And they actually decided to come to the Army Navy game.
oh,
And so we worked it
awesome.
out. So we met with them, and Tony actually came and sat down in the players' parents section with us for a while.
Uh-huh.
And my older son Toa was there, and we had a great time. And then after the game, they hung around and got to meet Ty and took some pictures, and we've been friends ever since. Or I think Jack is coming to the game this year too. So
Uh-huh. All right,
yeah,
good stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned an older brother,
hmm
Toa. Where is he right now?
So Toa lives with me right now. He graduated last year from Valdosta State University.
Mm-hmm.
He played football as well. He was an O lineman, and so he played, has a great job out of college working for a marine safety survival gear
Oh,
company,
very good.
and so he gets to travel up and down the eastern seaboard at boat shows and stuff like
Oh,
that. But
neat.
yeah, he's a good kid.
All right, cool. Now let's go ahead and stay on this discussion relating to family for a minute. What is one personality trait that Ty has that, when you think about the people who know you and your family well, and they see him exhibit this trait, they said, "Oh yeah, that's definitely Gina's son."
I would say probably the social butterfly piece, the friendly personality. Ty and I both have a way of kind of creating and cultivating and keeping friends,
Uh-huh.
and it spans across multiple different kinds of groups. And Ty, when he comes home, I literally barely see him. He has his basketball friends, his baseball friends, his just ordinary kid friends, his football friends, and he keeps those relationships. And I work really hard to do the same thing. So I do think
Uh-huh.
that's probably one thing that he got from me.
Yeah, well, so he's learning how to extend his networks early. That's
Very.
always a good thing.
Always did. I mean, he was always running around the neighborhood, and he'd be with his brother's friends, and they loved him to hang out with them because he'd play sports with them, and always give them
Uh-huh.
a run for their money, and then he'd have his friends, and yeah, it's pretty neat.
Right, right. So, my son Ethan is a couple years younger than Ty, and even when growing up, when he was like 10, 11, he's always into these different movies, and he'd always go, "Dad, have you seen this movie? You want to check this out?" Or, "Dad, have you seen this?" or whatever. So, and by the way, he was the one that got me hooked on, like, all the Marvel
hmm
characters and stuff like that, like starting with Iron Man and then the new Spider-Man movies and of course the Avengers and all that. And we literally have, I mean, we will watch those movies. We'll just sit down and watch. He'll come down and say, "Hey, you want to watch Endgame?" And I'm
Yeah.
gonna go, "Yeah, sure." So, but I was wondering if Ty had any, what does he like to do for fun outside of just hanging with friends and everything? Does he have like favorite movies, favorite music, that sort of thing?
He's all over the place. I mean, we do love going to see all the Marvel, DC, all those movies, all different kinds of movies. Music, he loves literally everything. I mean, one day he's playing country, one day he's playing rap. I mean, he's just everywhere on that too. And he likes to hang out at the beach. Like when he comes home, they go out on the beach or they go out on the boat. He likes to do that, or he just likes to just chill and hang
Mm-hmm.
out and be around us and play with the dogs. So yeah.
Right, right. Okay, cool. So when I think about my son and daughter and all the different things they've done, my daughter's actually a junior at the University of Arizona, but I should say rising junior. She'll be starting there. But anyway, so many things that you can kind of point to in terms of what has made you the most proud and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to try to hold you to, okay, what's the most proud feeling you've ever had? Because there's just so many of them. You can't really pick. So I'm just saying, okay, and in that basket of a dozen or so, proud moments with Tai off the field, okay, this has nothing to do with football or anything like that. What would you point to?
I think him being a good human. Like when parents and teachers and coaches and people that have met him that I don't know that have come up to me and just compliment me on just what a wonderful young man he is and how he's just, he would go over his friend's house and hang out with the parents and just have conversations with them, and they would relay back to me. And I think as a parent, that's kind of, at least for me, that was my goal, was to raise two good humans, two good people in society. And I think I've done that. And so that's probably one of my proudest things about him.
Yeah. And I can totally relate to that, because when you think about just everything that's going on in the world, and I was actually talking to one of my other classmates who's actually her son is Mike Zanti, who was he was a captain of the rifle team this past year. And I was sharing with her, oh my God, Ethan's just driving me nuts, or Lena's doing this, and she goes, Carl, look, you've done a good job, all right?
Yeah.
They're not on drugs.
Yeah. Yes.
And they got through high school, and they're in college now and trying to make their way. They're gonna try you, but and she's speaking from experience because she's raised, like, I think 2 sons and a daughter.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I totally agree with you. When you think about it in the scheme of things, the fact that you've been able to get them to the point where they're entering into adulthood and they are just good people, that's got to make everybody feel pretty good.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, even with my older son too, it's the same exact thing. I never had those awful teenage years with them. I never had to go through any of that stuff. And I look back and there was some, of course, things, but it was just a piece of cake. They were great kids. Still are.
Right. Okay, so this is the last question.
Okay.
But and up to now, and by the way, for those who are listening, when Gina and I agreed to do this, or when Gina agreed to do this with me, one of the things I mentioned was I will not ask any questions about Tai after he got to the academy. So in other words, I wasn't interested in pinging on her about questions around, the team this year and, what are blah, blah, blah. We can look at the newspapers for that. I was more interested in the other side of it. So, but I'm going to break that rule just this one time and just take you back to the Meadowlands on December the 11th. I don't know what it was local time there, but over here it was somewhere around 3:15, 3:30, and there's 20 seconds left in the game, right? Navy's got the ball. It's 3rd down. Tai takes a snap. He kneels down for that last time, flips the ball to the ref. Okay. You cannot use the word proud. Okay. Give me the one word that described your feeling when he flipped the ball to the referee and you knew that Navy had won the game.
I would say probably elated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So expand on that. I want to hear. And I would, if I would have had to guess, I would have probably chosen a synonym like joy or something like that. So yeah, let's speak to that a little bit and just kind of tell me what was going through, who was around you, what kind of emotions were you sharing, that sort of thing.
We were in the players' parent section, but it was scattered with other people too. I had my son Toa, and then Tony, Jack's son, was with us, and then a couple of Tai's friends who had joined us. They were there, and everybody was just standing up like the whole time, and when that started happening, it was just like building and building, and he had always said growing up that he wanted to play under the lights and in front of a crowd of 80,000 people, and it was just like he had such a hard start at the beginning of the season, and he got hurt in that first game and had to work to come back. And it was just kind of like everything at one time just was like, and it was crazy. I mean, we were jumping. I saw that they were coming towards us, and I'm like climbing over people trying to get down to the bottom so I could like touch him. His brother jumped onto the field and the security chased him back up. So it was pretty crazy.
Oh, that's great. That's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that, and by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but when the game was over, I kind of started thinking back a little bit, just accessing my recent memory in terms of Navy football. And I don't know if you knew this, but historically in the triple option era, most of the time the quarterbacks have been seniors, or at least juniors and seniors. In fact, I can rattle off to you, starting in 2002 when Coach Johnson took over, his first quarterback, Craig Candido, was a 2-year starter, but the next 3 after him didn't start until their senior year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Then, let's see, we had in 2006, we had a senior, Brian Hampton. He got hurt, unfortunately. And then the one guy who had experience in the triple option, because he ran it in Hawaii, was Kaipanoa Kaekunhata. And he was a sophomore, okay? So they beat Army that year in 2006 when he was a sophomore. Mm-hmm. And then they won again in 2007 and 2008, okay? Ricky Dobbs took over as a junior, all right? Mm-hmm. And then we had Chris Proctor as a senior, and then Keenan Reynolds came in, after that. So of course Keenan was
all four, right?
That guy was he was a triple option savant.
Yeah.
So he was there all 4 years. So obviously he beat Army as a sophomore, but Kaipo as a sophomore, Keenan as a sophomore, and then Tai. Those are the only three. Wow. That beat Army as sophomores in the last 20 years. So that's something to be proud of.
That's really neat. Yeah, I know he was really proud of himself because he beat him at the prep school too. And so he was, he had something to keep on his record. He wanted to win again. So,
well, I think I do recall whether I don't know if it was Tai that said it in an interview or something like that. But after the Army Navy game, he was kind of talking about his prep. And that was one of the things that Coach Ken reminded him of. He goes, "Hey, just remember that you did beat these very same guys at the prep school. I mean, they're on the field with you now. So just keep that in mind." And sure enough, that was the same result, which was great to see.
Yeah, and a lot of his prep school guys were on the field with him, and it just to see that whole team just firing on all cylinders and coming together, and all the different little things that happened to get them to that win. It was just great.
Yeah, definitely something that was just so much fun to watch. Yeah. I mean, as a fan, as a parent, doesn't matter. I mean, even if you never followed Navy football at all, I mean, it would be something that would be pretty cool to see.
It was just amazing. After it was all done, and I told Tai, well, you did it. You got what you always said. You did 82,282 people. So you made it come true. So that was pretty neat.
That's right. All right. Well, listen, Gina, that's going to take us to the end of our conversation. Thank you again so much for making the time to be with us today. It was so much fun hearing about what Tai was like when he was growing up, and I have no doubt that he'll continue to do great things while he's at Annapolis.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. You take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Coming up, we have our question of the day followed by our Midwatch segment, so stick around. This is Carl Darden, and you're listening to Navy Sports Central. Okay, we are now in the home stretch, so let's go ahead and keep things rolling with our question of the day. But before we do that, I wanted to give you all a quick heads up. If you want to get some more insight regarding the challenges that Tai Lavatai overcame to have a record-breaking senior year as a high school quarterback, check out the latest post in the Navy Sports Nation blog. I'll go ahead and put a link to it in the show notes. Okay, now let's get to our question. You heard me ask Gina Lavatai earlier to describe the feeling that came over her when her son Tai took the snap from center and knelt down for the last time to close out that big win over Army. So this question is for those of you who race athletes that competed from the time they were very little all the way up through high school and even college too. So here's the question. Which of your son's or daughter's accomplishments as an athlete ranks among your top memories? And here are your choices. A, scoring their first touchdown basket or goal or getting their first base hit. B, coming through a crunch time with a game-winning touchdown, basket, goal, or hit. C, earning team MVP honors. Or D, something else. Now, for those of you who respond, I'd like for you to provide a little bit of background. It doesn't have to be a lot, just enough to put us there in the moment to kind of, give us a feel for what was happening. If you happen to be part of the Navy Sports Nation, you can respond through our group Facebook page. And if you're not a member, I encourage you to join us by going to Facebook and typing Navy Sports Nation into the search box. You'll be asked 3 questions there. Even if you don't answer the first 2, you'll need to respond to the last one because that's basically your ticket to the dance, okay? After that, you'll be added to the group. But in the meantime, you can reply back by email. Just send it to carld@navysportsnation.com. Okay, let's go ahead and transition right into our Midwatch segment. The woman athlete we'll be tracking this fall is Ellie Abraham from the women's cross-country team, and she also runs indoor and outdoor track. Ellie is a junior from Brookings, South Dakota, and last year she was a very reliable performer on both the cross-country and track teams. Last year at the Patriot League Outdoor and Track and Field Championships, she took fourth in the 800 meters and then turned around and won the 3,000-meter steeplechase to help the Mids cruise to the title. And in the Star cross-country meet against Army last year, she led a pack of 5 Navy runners in finishing 2nd through 6th to clinch the win over the Black Knights. This year, Abraham figures to be one of the keys to the Mids' success in both cross-country and track. So we're really going to focus on her in the fall as the Mids competing cross-country. But trust me, you're going to hear Ellie Abraham's name quite a bit more during the winter and the spring when track gets started. Okay, now on to our men's athlete. He is Keegan Shreves, a senior from Potomac, Maryland. He was one of 3 Navy golfers recently named as a Srixon Cleveland Golf All-America Scholar. Now, to earn that honor, golfers need to maintain at least a 3.2 GPA and have a stroke average less than 76. And Shreves, who is majoring in quantitative economics, currently holds a 3.74 GPA. He's also a 2-time first-team All-America Patriot League selection and was named the team captain for this season. Last year against Army, he took on the Black Knights' #1 player and earned a half point by halving his match, and that helped the Mids tie the overall match, which they eventually won in a playoff. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how things go with Keegan Shreves and the Navy golf team this year. That's going to do it for this edition of Navy Sports Central. Thank you all so much for joining us. Now, if you like what you've heard, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and remember to spread the word to all the other Navy fans out there. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Gina Lavatai, for joining us today and giving us a little bit more of a peek at what her son, Tai Lavatai, was like before he arrived at Navy. Always cool to get that parent's perspective. We have been getting a great response to our question of the day, so if you want to jump in on that, just go to the Navy Sports Nation group Facebook page. I will go ahead and pin it to the top so you won't miss it. And just a quick reminder, the views expressed on Navy Sports Central are my own and do not reflect those of the U.S. Naval Academy or Navy Athletics. By the way, the music used in Navy Sports Central comes to you courtesy of Audio Jungle. This is a great site for purchasing the rights to use music from thousands of artists around the world, and those we feature in the podcast will be credited in our show notes. Talk to you soon, everybody. Until next time, this is Carl Darden. Go Navy, beat Army.